a there you go. You can go ahead and keep talking. I'm just trying to get the everything set up here. There it is. You know, of course, we do this every quarter instead of every month. I'll have to actually have a checklist, so I don't have to make sure I know how to do this from one month to the one quarter to the next.
Are you joking about that, Roger? Or do you think that's something we should discuss at some point?
Yeah, well, we've hinted at it, so.
Well, the EPA may want to have meetings too, so.
Well, the EPA process is going to be slow.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure they're going to have a lot to say each and every month. We've got the fourth consent judgment, which is, you know, just as fabulous as we all had anticipated. So there's not going to be a lot of updates on that front. It is something that we should have a continuing discussion on, you know, reducing the number of meetings.
Well, if EPA has meetings and CARD has meetings, you know, every other month or whatever, every, you know, quarterly, but swapped. I think EPA is going to want to meet with the residents. Maybe I'm wrong, but
I think that will follow us being listed, though, won't it?
right. Well, I don't know. It depends. They're pretty concerned about Ann Arbor.
And as I understand their timeline, final listing would occur probably next fall, you know, at the earliest. And I'm not sure how firm that is, but you know, that's a ways off. Yeah. So, and if we went to quarterly meetings, if at any point in time we were just so busy that we had to come back to, you know, monthly meetings, that would be difficult.
Yeah. Well, before, when Beth and I were on, just the two of us, I was suggesting maybe if we do go to quarterly meetings, we could still have a short monthly meeting or a short technical meeting before the quarterly meeting, so we can be more prepared and cover any issues that weren't taken care of in the meantime. So,
or maybe a board meeting, you know, more every month before the quarterly or something, have a board meeting where
something like that, yeah. Because there's always new issues that come up every month, and sometimes you have all the issues come up in one month, and then, you know, it spills over into the next month. So if we have quarterly meetings, then that spill over to the next quarter, that might be too late for some things. Like on the agenda today is this Gelman plan for monitoring plan for the Eastern monitoring plan, and that we only got that like the couple days before the last monthly meeting, and we didn't even have time to discuss it properly at a monthly meeting so people could weigh in and with enough time to comment on the plan. I did it like 11. I think mine was sent in like 11:30 the night that it was due. So yeah.
All right, Kathy's got her hand up. Go ahead, Kathy.
Would it be appropriate when we look at the agenda to add an item to at least discuss moving to quarterly meetings? That way we could have a formal discussion, and even if we don't make a decision tonight, it would be something to consider.
Yeah, let's do that for next month.
Add it next month?
Yeah, because that way people have a chance to think about it before the meeting.
Okay.
And I think, isn't next month a quarterly meeting anyway? Am I wrong?
No.
One more after that?
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
So we're at,
go ahead and
why don't we start our meeting?
yeah, I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting. Just to remind everybody, these meetings are being recorded. Will be posted to YouTube. And if you so don't say anything that you don't want recorded and shared, although, there's probably a way to cut that out later, but I'd rather not have to do that. And if you're new to the meeting, first time, and you have a comment, make sure you introduce yourself so the rest of us know who you are. And if you're calling in by phone, make sure Beth our secretary has your information so we can record you as being an attendee, because your attendance counts for when we vote on things as a group. So it's important that we know when you're here and make sure we have your contact information so we can keep you informed. So is there anything else I have to cover? Oh, I'm Roger Rayle. I'm chair of CARD and chair of SI Residents for Safe Water, and I just completed my 30th year as a citizen volunteer watching over the Gelman dioxane site. And I can't do this for another 30 years because I'm term limited. As much of us are. In fact, that's an issue that we have to always think about, is how can we keep an entity like CARD going long enough to be around for the when the cleanup's finally done, a century or so from now. So that's always bouncing around in the back of my mind. So I'm going to share the screen here and go to the agenda. Share screen, come on. There we go. Share. So you should be seeing the agenda now. Modify my view here. So I'll turn it over to Beth for the minutes from the previous meeting.
Thank you, Roger. I'm Beth Collins, and again, if I don't have you on my list, but I think I do have everybody on my list. Did everyone have a chance to look at the September minutes, and are there any changes, adjustments, comments before we vote on them? If not, do I have a motion to approve the September minutes?
So moved.
Wonderful. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? No? The minutes are approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Now, I'll turn it over to Jack for moderating. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you. I didn't see this added to the agenda until I looked at it this morning. We're going to talk about the elections of officers first, apparently. I'm Jack Eaton. I'm the executive director. I'm not elected, so I'm appointed by the board. The recently revised bylaws of CARD added 2 at-large board members to the 4 officers that have always served. I sent out an email to the entire group seeking nominations for these offices. Beth has expressed some interest in not being secretary any longer, although she said otherwise at the beginning of this meeting. So I don't know. But right now, the only nominations that I've received are the current officers and James Damore and Rita Locke Caruso for the newly created at-large member positions. I encourage anybody that's interested to express that interest. In the next week, Beth and I will be sending out an email to initiate the voting by email to all eligible CARD members, and then we'll announce those results after the 7-day polling period. Are there any questions?
Jack, could you explain what the requirements are to vote?
You just have to be a member, which means that you've attended 3 of the last 5 meetings.
Okay, great.
And Beth will have worked up a list of eligible voters for me prior to us sending that email out, and we will aim that email to those people. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Beth.
Yes, it's not that I'm, want to be in the pool for secretary, but I'm going to continue doing it until you can find somebody. And Roger said he had some, new neighbors maybe that he could get involved, and people that are living with this close to their drinking water wells. So, I will continue for sure until we find somebody else to replace me, but I won't be able to do, obviously local things and stuff. So.
Well, we very much appreciate the good job that you've done. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I just wanted to second what Jack said. Beth, I think your experience as a resident has been invaluable. And even though you're an expatriate, I certainly hope, I have a selfish reason, just I've personally enjoyed working with you, but I do hope that you continue with our organization, whatever capacity you see fit. But right now you are a most able secretary, and I hope that you would consider continuing for a time to follow. Even though you're expatriate, you're still making a difference. So thank you.
Right. Any other comments or questions about this item? We're going to move on to the EPA portion of the agenda. I didn't see anybody here from the EPA. Is there anyone? Is there anyone from Debbie Dingell's office?
Yep. Hi, everyone. Apologies for missing the last meeting. I was out of town, so I hope that went well. And again, if there's anything from that meeting that you're recalling would be good to share with our team, then please just let me know. Truly don't have anything related to share at this time, besides that there have been some changes in our DC team. So folks working on legislative work, which means there are some different folks who will be focused on that side of things in our office. So I just plan to give as much current up-to-date information that I have on this committee's current status to him. And, just wanted to get information from this meeting to send over to him. And if anyone else has things they feel that folks in our legislative side should know, then I would appreciate that, because our previous staffer left after 8 years of experience. Yeah. So, he had plenty of context, and the new folks just don't, because DC moves really fast. So yeah, anything worth sharing, would appreciate that info as I prep him as well. And this is not related, so I apologize, but sort of connected to the kind of thing that you folks might be interested in, just because I've heard some casual conversation about this in the past. Just wanted to remind folks, if you hadn't seen already, that our team is hosting a town hall on Thursday for addressing basically, it's mostly coming from concerns about the electrical grid. And people not knowing where to put their concerns about DTE's service, but also other state regulated services that folks just don't know where to go when they're thinking about them. So we're hosting a town hall with the Michigan Public Service Commission. Dan Scripps, the head of that, will be joining us, and that is going to be back at Washtenaw Community College in the Morris J. Lawrence building. So if you have the opportunity to join us in person or on live stream, then please do. And I know that that's not entirely related, but I did want to put that on your radar if you hadn't seen it through other statements or, online in some capacity. So that is coming up this week at 6 p.m. So I think that's about it. And please, I'll put my info in the chat again, but anything you want me to share with our new staffers or anything you just think is worth alerting the Congresswoman of immediately, please just reach out at any time.
Thank you. Go ahead, James.
Oh, just very quickly, my thanks to the Congresswoman and staff for organizing the town hall this Thursday. I'll be unable to attend, but having suffered our 6 outages this year and having resorted to buying a generator, we are very, very appreciative for your offices and everybody's all our elected officials help in trying to sort through the mess that we're going through right now in this community. So thank you.
All righty then. I don't see Dan Bicknell here today either, unless someone wants to correct me. But just to conclude the EPA portion of the agenda, I checked the EPA site today. There's still not the report that we thought we were going to get at the end of July. So like I said, the EPA moves slowly, but I'm confident that they're going to treat us well eventually. Moving on to the EGLE portion, is there a representative from EGLE today? Is Chris here?
No, they've told us that they're not going to come to meetings until only the quarterlies
Only quarterly. Yeah.
from now on. So that's why we thought maybe we should just have quarterlies, but
Oh, okay. I missed that. I didn't know that they had said that.
But we do have an update from
Go-
Chris sent this update, and so I guess we could have ChatGPT read this, or somebody else could read it. Basically, he said, you want to just read it, Jack, since you haven't had a chance to look at it yet. You can.
Or you could just post a link and we can all read it now. It doesn't look like a lot's happened. So
No, I mean, you can kind of read it on the screen here. There's 5 additional homes that were sampled by Washtenaw County and EGLE. No, there's somebody from Washtenaw County here, so they might be able to. Kristen, you're here, right? I haven't seen those results yet either. So sometimes it takes a while to get the results posted. The Eastern Area Monitoring Plan that I mentioned earlier, that I commented on, that public comment period ended officially September 29th at midnight, I think. Did anybody else send any comments in besides me? My comments will be part of my chair update. There's a link to all those. The big one that I'll go over during my update. And there were some issues with the plan that showed that that it wasn't as strong of a presentation as I expected from the company. No, any new monitoring plans? As Chris says, they haven't had any. Have not received anything, and they're waiting on something to come from the company. The MS4 violation and the results of that follow on. They're ongoing negotiations. No updates at this time. Allen Creek Drain System, no updates.
Roger, I'd like to make a comment.
Okay.
So I did call Chris Sabota last month, and he called me back, which was nice of him. And I asked him about what Dan Hamill had been doing in the Allens Creek Drain on the west side of Ann Arbor. And he said he was expecting to do the testing in November, early in November, the first 2 weeks. He'll wait for a dry spell, so there's not a contamination from rainwater. He says very, very likely they'll do it. So he still has to, since he's new, the new person doing this, I guess he needs to get some paperwork done. He said he shouldn't have a problem with that. And he'll do the same types of tests that Dan Hamill did. We would rather have better testing, but that's all we get for now, at least. I'm sure if EPA steps up, they will do a much more thorough evaluation. But at least we have something, and we know that, we had 49 part per billion not that long ago in West Park. And now, if you read the article that Rita and Bob Bailey submitted, you could make an assumption that maybe 100 part per billion could be dangerous. Bob listed 150 part per billion. There's a little bit of a wiggle room there, I guess, but
and the real problem with it just sampling the drain, of course, it's not really what's in the groundwater, and the groundwater is what's going to affect people's basements when it gets.
Well, actually, Dan Bicknell sent out, and I posted it on the website for the watershed group. He shows, I mean, we knew this, but he has a nice map that shows, there's no detection upstream and there's lots of this detection downstream. And even EGLE has said that that is, I don't know, proxy for groundwater. And that, that's something that we wanted on record, that was a meaningful data, and it's actually EPA used that data as one of the issues for Superfund. I mean, that was a big issue for them because there's a lot of fear about basement exposure as it's careening through the west side of Ann Arbor. A lot of wet basements.
Yeah.
So he's gonna, unless something weird happens, he'll probably be continuing doing those tests. The numbers tend to be going up, and what we have upstream, like at Vets Park, is probably working its way to West Park, and it's going to get higher. The numbers are going to go up. I don't think there's much, debate about that.
Yeah.
So he was good enough to do it. I'm sorry that Dan Hamill passed away, and he did, do what he could do, and I appreciate that. But Chris did do some sampling with him on a couple occasions, and I asked if he would notify me, and I would like to go out and observe what he does. So he's just familiar with what goes on. It doesn't look that complicated. The city helps them open the grates so they can get the water.
Yeah.
And in West Park, when there's a drought, there's gushing water through that drain, and that's all groundwater. And we've had people who worked in the drain office who said, yeah, that's groundwater. I can tell you categorically it's got groundwater. Now, if it's raining, it's mixed with rainwater. But when there's a low rain event, and the water's just gushing through there, that's groundwater. So I'm glad we're at least getting that test done.
Yeah, but we don't have the permanent shallow groundwater monitoring that Dan Bicknell first proposed.
No, they wouldn't do it.
2016.
They wouldn't do it.
Because
So this was an option that would at least get us some data.
Instead, they had the one-time RL wells, which really,
Yep.
you get a one-time sample, and we found some dioxin, but they didn't follow up on it with the permanent monitoring wells that we should have had.
Yeah. That's why we need EPA involved, because they actually know what they're doing. I'm not sure the other folks know what they're doing, but it's a serious issue, and I think we can't just blow it off. Unfortunately, I think some people in our city government don't really take it very seriously, and that's sad but true.
All righty then. There was a note in the chat. Kristen is here. She's listening and attentive, but she's recently had some dental work and she doesn't want to speak right now. So,
oh my!
our best wishes to Kristen in her recovery. And I think that's all for this portion of the agenda.
Well, there's 2 more items here. So we're still waiting on the NPDS permit. That's been lingering out there on a temporary basis for several years now, but we must not lose sight of that, because it could come back and not be what we really want. I did send in my a request for some northern boundary monitoring well logs that we didn't have, and along with this update, Chris sent me those monitoring wells so I can look at them and add them to some of the analysis that we need to do. I'll cover a portion of that during my update. Any questions on this before we go on?
James, go ahead.
Oh, there's a little more to it on here. Actually, there's another whole page. This is basically what I said in my email to Chris, and again, I'll go over part of this during my update.
Yeah, and I appreciate Mr. Svoboda submitting the report, and Yeah, we miss Dan, Mr. Hamill. He was very patient in working with us, and I know it was difficult sometimes for him to report no new information when we have questions. And yes, I understand EGLE's desire to move to quarterly meetings. Particularly, it sounds to me like they have capacity issues right now. That's conjecture on my part. But getting people working on the project up to speed and certainly having institutional memory, I can certainly appreciate that. And but I think being involved in this group for several years now, we have a lot of people here with deep interests and deep experience that are going to be that are in the community that need to ask questions to EGLE. I think it's a good interface. I think we need to do this aside from a quarterly format, just in terms of when a new draft MPDES permit was being issued. Now that is news. I think that's important to have a full discussion of what the ramifications of that. Certainly disseminating to the public what these things mean and in plain English what these mean.
Absolutely.
So I think it's important that we continue these monthly meetings, and I think obviously we'll work with the new team moving forward, but maybe we need to hold our hand in terms of bringing them, working together and going up to speed. That's my 2 cents. Something else regarding EGLE, and actually, and that's regarding news regarding the legislative front. I don't know, maybe we'll do it at other comments towards the end of the meeting, but I think it's important worth discussing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, the NPDES, we had, it's been about 4 years, I think, that 4 years ago, we were getting ready for the public comment period, and we had a group of subcommittee group that we met on our own in person back then, and we we were trying to figure out what we were going to do when they came out with their discharge amounts, things like that. So that might be, I think they're getting ready to have the public comment period soon. So we may want to start, I think that's what his notes at least said. We may want to get that subcommittee back together again and start thinking about what we think is acceptable discharge limits. Of course, we'd like it treated to non-detect, but right now the 7 to 10 parts per billion is what they discharge it at into Honey Creek. So.
Okay. Anything more here? I'm going to move on to the next portion of the agenda. We've reordered the old business items kind of by entity. So I don't see Yusuf here tonight, but turning to Washtenaw County, we were expecting an intervener update from Yusuf, but Kathy Knoll probably can speak to this as well.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I can report that the interveners, excluding Washtenaw County, will be dismissed without prejudice. The order has not been entered yet. It will be entered hopefully within the next couple weeks, but the judge has ordered this. In terms of the Washtenaw County action, the Washtenaw County and I guess it was just Washtenaw County has agreed to an extension for Gelman to answer the complaint. So it has not been filed yet. We're waiting on that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Within the last week, I ran into Yusuf and I asked him to provide me a copy of the response from Gelman, and he called me up a couple of days later and told me about that extension. So he'll be providing us with that, and we'll put it on the webpage and provide everybody a link to it if you enjoy reading that sort of thing. I think that the news that the parties have been dismissed without prejudice is really a best case scenario. The Court of Appeals said if you don't file a complaint to maintain your status as an intervener, you don't have any right to be in the room. And so being dismissed without prejudice means that those parties can come back at a later time if circumstances change that would give them reason to argue to be involved. So this is probably the best case scenario we can anticipate. So I think that's all good news. Any questions or comments on the intervener status or any of that? All righty. I'm going to move down to Ann Arbor Township. Mike, are you here?
I am here.
So I'd like to hear about the homeowner wells, but also if following that, if you would talk about the sand mine depleting your water wells out there. Just briefly update us on that too.
Okay. We have the report back from Tetra Tech on the, I believe it was finally 22 wells, residential wells that we sampled around the Blueberry area and Newport. And all of them were non-detect using method 522. So it's been a rather busy time around the township, but we'll get those distributed to the appropriate people soonish. On the Mid-Michigan Materials side, the board authorized and our attorneys have filed a complaint against Mid-Michigan Materials and other related companies to outlining all of the many violations of the township ordinances, the township development agreement with them, and the conditions of the final site plan that were agreed to by all parties. And we are also seeking a temporary restraining order and a permanent injunction as well. So that is fairly newly filed, and I have not seen any answer from them yet, other than there was some article about how, gee, nobody was suffering today from the defendants. And I guess I just say Diana's, I believe, on. And if Diana, if there are any other things we've received, please let the group know. I guess we haven't.
All righty. So is there any other news out of the township?
Well, I guess there is. I hadn't thought about
that comes within the realm of our agendas here.
Yeah, we're looking at buying new fire trucks and stuff. I mean,
I don't want to get into firefighting.
Yeah, please not.
Another township that's fighting that battle too.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Quick question for Mike. Has this been assigned to a judge in circuit court?
Yes, I believe it's Tim Connors.
Okay,
Excellent.
thanks.
Any other comments or questions of Mike? Okay.
All right, I was going to ask Mike, do you think that gravel pit will be, or sand mine, whatever, will be shut down completely?
Is that what we're asking?
Yeah. Do you think
Yes.
that'll yeah, okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Okay. Well, glad you are acting on that, and it sounds like a nightmare, and hopefully it ends soon.
Well, it'll be an interesting action. I mean, there are so many, aside from the fact that many of the violations are also issues in the EGLE. Notice that they filed against them of 14 violations of state law.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them are also violations of township law, but primarily the issue has to do with the fact that over and over again in township meetings with the Planning Commission and the Board of Trustees, and in writing, the Mid-Michigan Materials promised that there would be virtually no change except an expansion of the operation, but no change in the method, and that it would continue to be a closed loop system with no outfall of any of the wash water, anything into wetlands, which did occur. And in fact, they put in a pipe that caused that. So without notice to us. So there's those are the main things. And also they're pumping water where previously the Velas only dredged the area for water.
As a previous owner, right?
That would obviously be a major difference as well.
Yeah, I think that people have to remember that Ann Arbor doesn't have huge amounts of water to distribute around the townships. Our mayor proposed going to Detroit Water or Great Lakes Water Authority, and that was roundly shot down for costs and pollution and emissions. So I think, as a community, we really need to step up and try and protect our water sources, because aren't that, it's going to get very expensive to get water from Lake Huron through the Great Lakes Water Authority. So I'm glad that Ann Arbor Township's working on this, and hopefully they'll be closing down that facility. So thanks.
And Vince, I want to apologize. I didn't see your hand up because your hand doesn't contrast
stand
with
out.
the background very well. So
I'll try and change it. Sorry.
Alrighty.
Thanks.
Kathy, you still have your hand up, but without regard to your hand, you're up next. Scioto Township have any updates?
Turned everything off. There are no updates.
Okay. And I don't see Patty here, so I don't think the city of Ann Arbor has any updates.
No, Patty's on a well-deserved vacation, and she told me there are no updates.
Alrighty. So I want to note that the county and the townships have designated liaisons with our group, and the city of Ann Arbor has not. So I've prepared a letter to send to the mayor and council asking that they designate someone who could be, who could attend our meetings and speak on behalf of the city. So I'll probably be sending that out within the next month. Go ahead, James.
Kathy, sorry to put you on the spot, but when we talked offline, you have nothing new about KOC, right?
That's correct. We've been told by the developer that they do plan to resubmit, and they do plan to conduct a hydrogeology study. They've been told it will take Larry Lemke several weeks to analyze the results from the study. So this process is going to go on for a while, and I know nothing at this time. So nothing's been submitted. They are not scheduled to be on the agenda, the board agenda, and I don't see it happening in the next 6 weeks. So.
Mm-hmm. And if it be resubmitted, would it go to the board of trustees, or have to be sent back down to the planning commission level?
Well, the planning commission has made their recommendation. I don't know yet if it's going to go to the board or the planning commission.
Okay.
Right. I don't know.
Sure. Thanks, Kathy. I appreciate it.
Okay.
But if it does
just work, due diligence.
If it does pop up on one agenda or another, you could just send a notice to Cardcore so that everybody knows, if we're between meetings.
Okay.
James, your hand's still up.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a good point to do this, and I forgot to let Beth know before we go too far in the weeds. We're talking about other agencies. Just to let you know and let everybody on the call know, earlier this year, we passed a resolution urging the legislature to pass a strong polluter pay bill. I can say comfortably that by around the end of this month, the legislature is planning to introduce bills to do just that. From what I've seen, it's going to do a lot of the things that we're hoping for in terms of making polluters accountable, language regarding orphan sites, corporate accountability, amongst the other issues that are there, as well as standards for cleanup, moving away from simply protecting the public in terms of drinking water, in terms of Gelman, but actual cleanup standards, which is something that we moved away from, and which is why we're struggling with this now. Now, this is what's being introduced, or was proposed to be introduced. What is finally debated in the legislature between both houses and what's finally passed is two different things. But I wanted to give this body knowledge, information that this is happening in fairly short order. And I'm going to take it upon myself to be apprised. I'll be contacting Annie Somerville, and who works in Senator Irwin's office, and asked to be kept up to date in terms of any developments that happen. And when I come to Annie, I will be diligent in reporting out to this group.
Thank you. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I guess that's a prompt for me to dig out my comments from mid-90s when the polluter pay law was gutted. And I ended up going up to Lansing for a half a day to testify. When I got there, they said, well, they're not taking any more testimony. So I just had to hand in my written comments. But those are still relevant today, that when the polluter pay was actually working, starting to work quite well back then, that's when they gutted it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad that that was allowed to happen, and basically overnight. I mean, it was a quick action, much like the what followed on later was the loosening of the cleanup standards. So those two kind of go hand in hand, to tighten the standards to what other states use and to protect our water supplies, because we've got 20% of the world's fresh water defining the shape of Michigan, and the sixth Great Lake is our groundwater, and we can't. Once we ruin this, we don't have another place to go for water. Everybody's looking to the Great Lakes for getting their water. Well, we're not. We got to be better stewards of this. We need to be leading the way.
So here we are. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you both. Seeing no hands, I'm going to move on to the next item. Rita, do you have anything to report from the Yale Superfund research? Is Rita Locke Crusoe here?
Rita, it looks like her screen is frozen.
Oh. Well, when we see her again, we'll come back to her. The next item is the idea that we should vote on a resolution supporting the idea that Gelman should fund additional water well testing.
Jack,
Yeah.
Heather Lawver is with us though, and did want to talk about her survey. I'm sorry, that's under.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, I missed her name and I apologize. Go ahead, Heather.
No problem. So the survey's coming along, and it's been reviewed by Kristen, your Kristen out there, and by another woman who is the director of public health in Stratford, Connecticut, because we're trying to make this generalizable across the United States. And I am talking with Dr. Vasilio on Monday to review it with him to make sure it jives with the Yale's Superfund Research Center priorities. And then I have somebody coding it with me, and it should be ready to go by mid-October, I hope. And at that point, we'll distribute it. I really hope to get it for the next November meeting for CARD, but I'm being told that it will take 10 to 15 days for my university to review it with the Institutional Review Board. And then I'll be released to disseminate. So that may not make the November meeting. However, I trust that the survey could be disseminated out of a meeting cycle. Is that correct, Beth? Yeah, she's nodding. Okay, super. So excited about it. We'll see how it goes. It's response to what you have asked us to put in the survey. So hopefully we'll get some good input from that. Another just point, if Rita is she unmuting yet? I did update their new Yale Superfund Research Center's new community engagement core leader, Dr. Iris Kaminsky. I spoke at length about your dilemma out here in Michigan. As you know, the Superfund Center has been looking at some other cities, namely doing an epidemiological study in Long Island that is actually I think they're intending to take blood samples. And I think if Rita comes on, she can explain a little bit more. But that's exciting because to date, there hasn't been any epi studies linking human exposure to illness or blood levels even. So that would be interesting. And they're focusing on Florida. So the fact that we're able to connect with their new community engagement leader, I think is a really good sign. She was appalled about the length of time that you guys have been exposed to the situation. So I think we have their ears and interest, and we'll continue with that relationship. And of course, Rita is the liaison from your group to that and on the board. So that's I think it's an excellent connection for you guys, and you should continue to seek out joint grants and joint projects that might bring some more funds and light to the issue. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on Heather's remarks? Go ahead, Beth.
No, it just looks like both Vince and Rita maybe lost their internet. So I'm looking for them to join again, but they're not with us now too.
All right. Go ahead, James.
Just to Heather, thank you, and thank you to Yale for your participation in this. It's very encouraging to have an outside view, and the signals that you're giving to us and the feedback is just it's very heartening. Thank you.
Good, Roger.
Yeah, regarding the vote, we have the wording for a resolution, except for the whereases. And I've drafted some whereases from, actually had AI do it for me, and encouraged some of the other board members to step forward and organize those in a logical manner. People who are used to writing whereases, to do that and make a final version of it so we can vote on it. So I'm still looking for volunteers among those on the screen who want to help craft the whereases and join the team to do that. So you can respond accordingly, and we'll get this done by the next meeting maybe. So that's all I have on that.
All righty.
And Jack, Rita LaCruso has joined us again.
She's
I don't know if
connecting
she's
audio.
fully connected.
Yeah, she's getting there.
You're mute.
Can't hear you, but we can see you.
I'm getting there.
There.
Okay.
There you go.
So yeah, I'm on the cell phone. I think our internet crashed because Vince and I both lost the connection. So, okay. Sorry about that. You want me to report on the Yale Center? Is that
Please.
or not? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right, okay, so the Yale Center, I got an email and they've set up a Zoom meeting on Thursday of this week. And we are going, and the only information I have is that we are going to discuss a grant, writing a grant to study the Gelman contamination. So just to remind people, the center was funded as a Superfund research center, which is a program within the NIEHS of NIH, the National Institute of Environmental Sciences within NIH. And they cut the funding of the centers by 50%. So they didn't know about our contamination when the contamination is a much lower exposure. So they're interested in us. I'll know more after Thursday. How's that?
All righty, thank you.
Okay.
Any questions or comments of Rita? Seeing none, are there any other issues that executive board members would like to raise at this time? Seeing none, I'm going to turn this over to the chair for our update from him. Roger, you're mute.
I should know better by now to look at both screens. So the Eastern Area Monitoring Plan required a comment by the September 29th. I got mine in at the last minute and was accepted. This link here in my update will take you to the monitoring plan itself. And then my comments are included. There's a Google Docs version and a PDF version. So either one of these should be okay for people to review and see what I commented on. But these are the major points, and that the changes they made weren't fully justified in their report, and they wanted to shut down some wells that probably should be continued to be monitored. So that was part of my discussion, and especially monitoring well MW 465 DuPont, which was a former homeowner well. And it was the only homeowner well in that area at that depth. So maybe I should bring up the Google Doc version so I can show you what I'm talking about here. And I can zoom in a little bit on this. So we're talking about this well here, 465 DuPont, which, as I point out here, is the tip of the spear for this amount of dioxane heading, looks like straight north. That is a very important well, because without it, none of these other monitoring wells that were set up later would have been set up. That whole dioxane would have gone north, or someplace. We don't know exactly where it's going, without anybody monitoring at a depth that no other wells are at that depth in this area. So it just happened that there was a homeowner well that got drilled in 1995 that was deep enough to catch this contamination. Because there's no other wells in that depth, we don't know how the dioxin got here. And we have limited information about where it's going. Some of it's going east, perhaps, but Gelman's plume shows it's going straight north. Now they say, well, it's going to be a barrier here and it's going to turn and go completely east, but we have all of these hits north of that oh, by the way, there's some data from 1995 that's still not in the database that relates to that well. I wanted to point that out. But we have all these hits here north of where that is on township wells, and we don't know where this dioxin came from, but it seems to be coming from this area. And so there's still a lot we don't know about where the dioxin is and where it's going. MW 133 was noted in the eastern area monitoring plan, even though it's not in the eastern area. So there was a question of why is this even in this report? It looked like in the report that they were going to stop monitoring MW 133, and it's one of the northernmost wells that's got constant hits on all three of the layers, shallow, intermediate, and deep. So I can't believe they would stop monitoring that, especially since it's in the western area, which doesn't have the same prohibition zone that the eastern area has. And then there's some other observations I made about other wells. So I'll leave that up to people to read through this and if they want to know more about it. So again, these are the hits we've had on township homeowner wells beyond where EGLE has or had mapped where the plume was, beyond where Gelman had mapped where the edge of the plume was. So we have all these new hits within the last 3 years. Well, they might have been there before that, but it's only in the last 3 years that they were sampled using method 522 so they could discover it. So some of those are below the EPA standard of 0.35. Some are between 0.35 and 0.5, which is what EGLE can detect with their older method. But some are detectable even with the old 1 part per billion method that Gelman still uses. And they're right along here, clustered in this area along Miller Road. So it could be that these wells are just following the tributaries 100, 150 feet below ground. The surface tributaries kind of get an indication of where this dioxin may be moving towards the river. That's the current hypothesis. And so the general groundwater flow, this is from an earlier study, 2002, I think. And we just added some arrows here to show where the flow may be going. It could be going straight to Barton Pond. This is an arrow that Larry Lemke had added in. And this is an arrow that I had added in before we had these results, which seemed to guess that, yeah, maybe they're following these tributaries, and that's why we're getting hits there. We do have a new monitoring point here, MW 148, which is right about here, filling a gap in the northern boundary wells. And part of what I sent to Chris was this concern that the closest cross-section diagram that's nearest where that was didn't find the aquifer that MW 148 revealed. So there's really an aquifer here where in the prior sampling didn't find an aquifer here. Well, it's there, and not only that, it has a hit on it, just like the township wells to the north of it. So this may be the pathway of dioxin that's making it to those township homeowner wells following along this ancestral stream bed, 100, 150 feet below ground. What's curious about this sampling, we just got the well log for this. Chris just sent it yesterday. There were no vertical sampling for the shallower wells up here. And I thought that Gelman was required to do sampling every 10 feet during the drilling. This is a guess of where the, you know, I guess when I put this in, we had only had the depth of these wells. We didn't have the cross section, so I need to go back and put in where the new well log actually shows. It may not be quite this extensive. This shallow aquifer might not be this this wide, this deep, but clearly there's a bigger aquifer here than what shows in this cross section diagram. Now, Chris correctly stated in his reply that as part of his update that next time somebody does a cross section, they will incorporate this data. But it's taken this many years for it to get even noticed that, okay, there's an aquifer there, there's dioxin in that aquifer, and if you go north of that, you find dioxin in homeowner wells. So we missed this pathway for all these years because Gelman didn't want to put in these extra wells initially. We had to lobby and lobby and lobby to get these put in. And when it finally got put in, sure enough, there's a dioxin. So there's a lesson here for everybody that we can make a difference, but we have to be persistent. It's too bad that it takes so long, because maybe we could have prevented some of those hits to the north. And other wells nearby, some of this overlaps with my concern about the eastern area monitoring. These are wells that have gone up so far as of June, I think is when this was up through 2023. These are the highest ever readings for these locations, and they all tend to be in the northern portion of the evergreen plumes. A lot of them. Some of them are to the east, to 92, and yeah. Let's see. The other thing that I've been, this is kind of a side note. This was a video that was produced by the Orlando Sentinel, because I think somebody mentioned the Yale Center studying what's going on near Orlando, Florida, and Central Florida, where they found a dioxin contamination they didn't know about. It was, somewhat hidden from the officials for years. This is a really good video that summarizes how they discovered the dioxin there, and the issues there mirror some of the issues we've seen here at the Gelman site. So I encourage people to go to this, go to my link here on my chair update in the minutes, or in the agenda and the minutes both, and watch this video. Very good, very well done by the news reporters there in our Orlando Sentinel. They still have a daily newspaper there, so it's like the old days here, These are just some more loose ends that continue from last month. By the way, we got these now, so I got to take that out. And let's see what else here. This is a review again. Nothing's changed on the EGLE's ArcGIS Rockworks database. There's really no new data set that they've mapped. They haven't updated the data. and there's no indication of when that's going to be done. And so I rely on the access database. We used to get it monthly. Now we're, especially with Dan's passing, it took a while to get the June one. I think we got it the end of August or something like that. So I try to keep up where I can, and I still have to add all that to the Google Earth mashup. So when I show something, it's more up to date than what it has been. It's maybe someday this will be more automatic once the data is cleaner. Once we have AI tools to do the cleanup for me, or to when researchers do their own sampling and stuff, they'll use the naming conventions that are accepted and make it easier for people to do analysis. But that's basically my update. Any questions? Anything you want me to go back and highlight?
You're mute, Jack.
There we go. So
Not just
Roger,
me.
Roger, I did read your comments, and I found them to be quite clear. I did not read their entire proposal because there was just a lot of data in there, and I wasn't going to swim through all that. But I appreciate your effort on our behalf, and thank you. Any other questions or comments on Roger's presentation today?
Heather speaking. I love that you have so much data. So do try to keep those historical sites in there, because if nothing else, it's going to give you information on where, the concentrations and how long it takes to dissipate and how fast it's going from those sites. And I think that's just super important to fight for those historical sites to be kept.
Yeah. And along those lines, as I've mentioned to others before, but there's new people on the screen, I have the data from pre-95. And there's a layer for, so this is the 1995 Gelman database. It's their own readings plus the readings of Washtenaw County and the DNR DQ at the time. And this is broken down by where there's non-detect and where there is detect. By the way, if you hear, it sounds like rocks being thrown in the background here, it's because we have a walnut tree. You get these discharge of walnuts that go crash, crash, crash. The squirrels are happy. But anyway, yeah, so we have all these readings from the old days. Only about 20% of those are in the current database. And some of those are kind of key, like the MW30D that would have discovered the E unit 8 years before it was discovered. So I appreciate your comments, Heather, because that's important. This dioxane was sort of known about, and sometimes people who have access to the data allow it to be set aside and not shared, not archived as well as it should be. And the company had a lot to do with that, because they didn't want to, if you got a problem, you'd like to maybe tamp down the ones that seem to be minor problems. Let's concentrate on the major problems. Well, the E unit was kind of a major problem, and that could have been discovered 7 years earlier and maybe prevented the contamination of the city's supply well, the Northwest supply well down here. So just to remember that data is data. And without the data, we don't know where the dioxane is. So let me go back to the agenda. So I'm done. We're done early, record time. Thank Chris for that. I think having his crisp results of his update kind of helped. We'll see how it goes in the quarterly meetings. We'll probably get some more. We can ask questions of them when they're here. That takes time. So, but this time, you know, I think we got everything done that we needed to get done there. Now, go ahead, Jack. You want to take over?
Sure. I would note that not having him here means that we get his presentation, but there's no ability for us to give him feedback. On the other hand, sometimes that portion of our agenda would run long because Dan would always give the long answer, but we'll see how this all works out. Are there any non-agenda items that anybody has that they'd like to raise at this time? Seeing no hands, I'd remind you that our next meeting is Tuesday, November 7th at 6 p.m. and then our quarterly meeting in December. It's nice to see everybody.
Actually, Jack, there is one non-agenda item that happened this morning. And I'll just say a brief word about it. Dan Bicknell had sent me an email saying, what's going on with the drill rig next to the LA Fitness? So I stopped by there earlier today and talked with the drill team, the drilling team. They're the Stearns team that's been on this for 20 years from a little town in Michigan I can't remember the name of, but they're just basically cleaning out TW23 because the screen gets clogged up and it reduces their purge rates. So I had a nice conversation with the guy who was in charge with that team today. They have a 6 month ongoing 6 month routine now with the company they just set up. So every 6 months they're going to be cleaning out these purge wells to keep them operating. And so that's a good sign that they're moving in that direction. There was some questions about that he couldn't answer about some of the other wells nearby. There's a Maple Village East well that's supposed to be right near that well that's never been sampled. It was set up as perhaps a test well originally, and it was a little disturbing that even the driller who his company might have been the one to put that in, I don't know, didn't know where the well was. It doesn't show on all the maps. It hasn't been sampled. We don't know if it should be sampled, but you know, those are the kind of little tidbits that we can find by talking to people. So it was good that I had a conversation with them, and you know, I think we understood each other pretty well. So that was a non-agenda item that happened today. On my way back from Home Depot after cleaning out my sewer line.
We owe Dan a thanks for noticing that they're out there tinkering around. So
yeah, that's a good view for everybody. If you see something, say something, because that's how I found out about some of the wells going in back in the early days. Somebody would call me, hey, they're putting a well in across the street. You know, what's that all about? So we'd go out there and try to get information about it. So we have feet on the ground, you know, we have interested people who can pay attention and things like that. So appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much.
And just everybody look for the email from me about the election. It'll be coming out if you've been to 2 of the last 3 meetings. or 3 of the last 5, right? 3 of the last 5. I do know what I'm looking for. I'm sorry. Gosh.
This gives me no confidence at all. Thank you, Beth.
Thanks, Beth.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good meeting.
I'll stick around for a couple of minutes. If anybody wants to discuss anything.
Go ahead and end that tape.
Yeah, I will. I gotta stop the share. Stop recording.